Hello. Hey guys. Some familiar faces out there. This is it. Oh yeah, the clicker. So if you guys don't know us, we're brothers and we're filmmakers and we have a little YouTube channel called Methodbox. On it, we have a very specific logline. We say, we're here to help you build your brand. We do a lot more than just talk about brand building on our channel. We actually consult with entrepreneurs who have found some success and other creatives, and we take all of their insights and we package them back to our audience in creative ways, we think.
So yeah, we like to call ourselves meta storytellers, and we call ourselves meta storytellers. One, because we like to get meta in our videos, kind of a lot. But also because we like to use our YouTube channel as an ongoing example of what building a brand can look like. Being self-referential, using ourselves as an example, hence being meta, hence meta storytelling.
So storytelling is our jam. That's what we're all about. So we've been at this for a while, and we want to impart to you some storytelling insights with our talk. So hang with us here.
So first things first, we have to establish what makes a great story. Well, what does a great story do? The first thing a great story does is it allows us to connect with others. A great story allows us to relate and empathize with others. It allows us to jump out of our own skin and get behind the eyes of somebody else. It gives us a seemingly infinite amount of windows into an infinite amount of perspectives.
Nathan, that's so deep of you.
Thank you, Jonathan.
So deep. Infinite amount of perspectives, that's what stories do. So we take our perspective, and now we have a spectrum of perspectives that we can drop our perspective into. So this does a lot of things, one of which we can tweak our own life the way we want to write it, which is pretty cool.
So yeah, this can be very comforting and it can be very motivating. So a great story intrigues us, it engages us, it keeps us emotionally invested all the way to the very end. We all love a great story.
Well, what's funny, you say that, is we all love a great story. We've been enamored with stories ever since the caveman days when we were painting pictures on caves. For millennia, we've been so enamored with stories. But what most of us don't realize is that we are the own protagonists of our very own stories. This is the hugest writing assignment that we've ever been tasked to do, is write the story of your life. And we don't even treat it with that respect, Nathan.
We don't. It's a shame. But before we go any further, we want to make a very clear disclaimer. When Jonathan says that you are the protagonist, he does not mean grandiosity.
Grandiosity, we don't want to confuse this. Grandiosity, by definition, is an inflated sense of self-importance. This is something bad. This usually leads to self-destruction, to narcissism. That's not what we're talking about. That's that usually that battle within us tempts us toward the wrong dark corners. That's usually what we don't want. So we don't mean grandiosity.
Correct. Delusions of grandeur is not what we're talking about. In fact, there's an author by the name of Robert Moore who wrote a book called Facing the Dragon. And in this book, he states that that grandiosity is defined as having larger fantasies and wishes for yourself than your real-life experience can support.
So as we're traveling down this grandiosity route, we have to say, what do these fantasies do? Why they're bad? Well, they usually do one of two things. They make us manic because there are demands that we can't keep up with, or lead us doing the opposite. They make us feel depressed because the goals are so unachievable that we end up feeling useless. So not what we're talking about.
And this is something that we all have to deal with, especially us creatives, when that inner dragon is constantly wanting more for itself than we can provide.
So now you're asking that question. So are we not allowed to dream? Of course. Of course we're allowed to dream. Of course we're allowed to have creativity. This is the realm of innovation. We need to have a vision for ourselves and know what we want to do for ourselves. So when we mean by you are the protagonist, what we really mean is more of Aunt May's definition of the protagonist. You know Aunt May from the Spider-Man movies. Her definition of the hero.
There's a hero in all of us that keeps us honest, gives us strength, and keeps us noble.
Thank you, Aunt May. He's been practicing that. That was pretty good. So what does Aunt May mean by honest and noble? Well, according to our guy, Robert Moore, who wrote that book, Facing the Dragon, Grandiosity, he would mean humility. Humility he would define as understanding your own human limitations, so knowing exactly what we're capable of, being realistic about that, and furthermore, asking for help when we know that we need it. Those are the two things. It's as simple as that, is how we're defining humility here.
This hero that we all have inside of us that Jonathan and Aunt May are talking about. It's what keeps us understanding and lets us empathize with others, and ironically lets us empathize with ourselves.
So where are we going with all this? This is the main theme of our talk, and it's that there are clearly parallels between the life that you're living, Alex, the life that you're living, Connie, Nathan, everyone in here, and storytelling. So I'm going to tell you a story about when I was 20 years old.
This shot when he was 20.
That's me when I was 20. So who here is a writer, fancies himself a writer? Raise your hand if you're a writer. Yeah? Okay. So what do they tell you to do? They say pull from experience. Well, I did that, and I infused my characters with myself. That was a very interesting experiment because I saw both the positive and the negative. So there my characters were reflecting myself back to me. So the character flaws I was able to see in an incredibly honest and objective way. It was I was able to see the ugliness inside of me. So of course I was able to remedy that. I started to realize one thing, that it wasn't just creatively rewarding to partake in my art. Now it was therapeutic, and it was cathartic, and it was enlightening. So I continued on through my 20s, and I continued writing, and I started to see that there were definitely lessons that I could extrapolate from my art and put that into my life, and vice versa. They were kind of synonymous. You know, when I learned about show, don't tell, or less is more, these themes, as soon as I applied them to my life, all of a sudden I became a better communicator, a more effective listener, a more active participant. I understood the true nature that actions speak louder than words. Show, don't tell. So life equals art. There are clearly benefits by seeing your life, the correlations between your life and stories.
So let's take this and let's unpack this, and now we're going to flip it onto you. You're the main character, you're the protagonist, with all your complexities and your experiences, all the traits that you've attained through nature and nurture, all your dreams, aspirations, goals, wishes, fears, insecurities, everything that makes you, you. Now imagine that you're in a dark room, and there's a spotlight overhead. And then I appear in that room, and I ask you, what is your story?
Well, first things first, this is the movie of your life that you're writing, and so we have to acknowledge one thing, is that you are in control of your reality. I think we know this, but we don't really know this. Because furthermore, we have to understand that we are the ones that are held accountable. A lot of times we like to blame others, a lot of times we like to blame the obstacles that are in the way or create villains in our head. You are the one that's held accountable for your reality, and furthermore, you're going to be a role model, whether you like it or not, by default, just by living the existence that is your story. People are going to be tuning into your movie. It's up to you what kind of role model you want to be. So I would proffer that Uncle Ben, you know Uncle Ben from Spider-Man when it showed on FX apparently, his definition of what it is to be accountable to yourself.
Peter, always remember, with great power comes great responsibility.
And then we get that shot, which is like totally makes that scene, I think.
Okay, so now you're tasked to draft up the story of your life. So where do you begin? Well, you begin with the theme. You gotta know what the message you're trying to convey is before you can actually start writing it, right?
That's right. Actually, every great story has a resounding theme, has a resounding message. This leads to this. Grandiosity leads to self-destruction. We are our own worst enemy. Life is better with company. As soon as we can understand the message, we can now walk forward in our path with intent, because now we can populate the universe that we're painting with the right setting, the right characters, the right message.
Right, so this is your life. So what's your theme? What's your message? What is it that you stand for? Again, this is something that a lot of us tend not to think about.
So I know it seems like we might be obvious with this talk, but I would proffer that a lot of people don't actually take the time to think about this, because how often do you think about this? This is a great question to ask yourself. How do you answer that question? You can answer it politically, you can answer it religiously, you can answer it morally, just having a core set of fundamental principles that you live your life by. A lot of times people are just coasting. They're not taking the time out to think about this. As long as you do this, you can distill it down to what is your personal truth. When you have your personal truth, you now have a theme to live your life by, and everything kind of makes sense after that.
About a year and a half ago, I was 19 years old, and Jonathan had made the flight over to Chicago to come pick me up because I was gonna move to Los Angeles. And I was 19, I was excited, I was youthful, it was my first time moving, I was going to Los Angeles, the city of dreams. And of course, I was excited, wouldn't we all? And when we got there, of course, we did all the touristy things, Hollywood, Venice, everything people do when they visit LA. And it wasn't until maybe a few months after that, I was laying in bed, and I was on my phone on Instagram, as we all usually do, and I was scrolling through my profile, and I started to realize, why am I just posting a bunch of pictures of myself in random places in LA? And then I did some deeper research, and I went to my stories, and I looked at the archive, and I noticed that all of my stories, I had made sure, click that for me, to put this Los Angeles tag and everything. Now I had to take a step back, and I asked myself, why am I doing this? Am I doing this to boost the social media presence of Methodbox? Or am I doing this to make myself look cool to all my friends back home, trying to show them that I'm doing something with my life, trying to get some admiration from them? So every once in a while, you have to take a step back and understand what is it that you truly stand for.
So again, guys, this is about being mindful of yourself. That's really the main point we're trying to make, is if you're mindful of yourself and you know yourself, you are then clear as to the intent that you want to walk. So we would even say that those who think that they know they have it all, take the time out. This is going to be a reoccurring conversation that you have your entire life with yourself. It might take weeks, it might take months, it might take years. Every single thing that you're doing, why do you do it, and what am I getting out of it? The social media one is a great example, because why are we on social media? Is it just brand building, or is there some other kind of stuff we may not like about ourselves that's the reason why we're on there? So have that ongoing conversation with yourself, and you will understand where the hero must go, which is you, once again. The next thing you have to do is talk about the approach. How are you approaching the writing of the story that is your life? It's all about being mindful. Are you formulaic? Do you understand your goals, and are you breaking them down? Are you compartmentalizing them from a yearly to weekly to monthly to daily? And are you just plowing through it? There's no wrong answer. It's fine if you do it, because formulaic does have a dark connotation, so that's not what we mean. Or are you more organic? You just kind of cast out some buoys out there into the water, and you don't know how you're going to swim there. You just know you have to get there. And you're going to surprise yourself and your audience, those tuning in the process. It doesn't matter how you get to those plot points, those goals in your life, as long as you're hitting them. Man, we're like Tony Robbins in this right now.
Okay, now we can think about the genre that we want our life to be. So this is really about your perspective and how you react to certain things in your life. So you decide, is your life going to be a drama? Or maybe it's tragedy. Maybe you have a new perspective and now your life is a comedy. Again, these are all things that you choose to react to, and it's all about your perspective.
Is the glass half full or is it half empty? How do you see that? What lens? Are you watching it through a 30 millimeter, or are you watching it through an 18 millimeter? It's all on you. You're the one in control.
Okay, so once you have your genre figured out, now it's time to choose your setting. You can literally live anywhere in the world that you want. Me and Jonathan, we wanted to choose a place that empowered our creativity and gave us a lot of opportunity. So we chose a sunny, ambitious Los Angeles.
Yes, that's all right.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the next thing we have to, of course, think about is the external, which are the characters in our life. Now, of course, we can't control the family that we are born into. We can't control other people, but we control those in our inner circle, those who can directly influence our energy, let's say. The main thing that we want you to take away about this point is that everyone thinks they're the good guy. Really think about that. When we ask ourselves, does evil exist out there? We would say that most people are probably good people. It's just their definition of what good is. This may very well differ than your definition of what good is. So then, this is about being mindful. They are living their own movie, you're living your own movie. This is something you're going to wrestle with, so you probably should get good at understanding that aspect of life. Everyone thinks they're the good guy.
Then, every now and then, you run into the villain. The toxic people in your life that want to pull you down. Sometimes they may not be clear, or it might not be obvious that they are a toxic person. But once you do realize who those people are in your life, it's up to you to either decide. Are you going to succumb to their grasp, or are you going to prevail and triumph?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's me again. Obstacles. deal with obstacles, but that's what makes our life interesting. But I hear you. It's not interesting when your Aunt May gets diagnosed with cancer, or your Uncle Ben gets shot and dies.
On the street, no less.
It's not fun when you break up with a girlfriend. Any of that's not fun. But I would say this is the true test of the character. This is when you're kind of forced to act and approach a certain situation, and your true character is revealed.
That's kind of the point of it all. All that shit that life hits us with, that's kind of the point. It tests us, like Nathan is saying, that how we present ourselves in the face of adversity, as we've heard many times. Think about that. Like, really take that in. Like, when shit is hitting the fan, how am I reacting to it? Length. This is the final thing, we're going to wrap this up. Length. A lot of times we hear, life is short. Life is short. Life is short. We don't think so. We think we're here for a pretty solid chunk of time. In fact, we think that 3-act structure that is your life is constantly fluctuating because of that length. In fact, you might still be in the first act and you don't know it. We don't know until the end. But when we do reach that 3rd act, that climax, and then the resolution, when you're sitting there and you're reflecting on your life and all the things that you've accomplished, maybe it's a family, you're at that Thanksgiving dinner table with cataracts in your eyes, watching maybe you're thumbing through your photo album. Body of work, you're reflecting on a fulfilled career. All we ask is that at the end, when it's time to let go, do it gracefully. Because it's not that the story had to end. It's that you had the opportunity to tell the story to begin with. Thank you, guys.
We're Methodbox.